Namaste, everyone. How are you? I hope you are all safe and well. It's an honor to be able to be with all of you today. Unfortunately, not physically, but these are the times we live in. So, at least we are able to come together from different parts of the country. So, thank you to the Shibulal family for supporting this incubator. Thank you to Mantra for Change, Sanjay Purohit for inviting me here. We have a very short time, so I'm going to go straight into a short speech, and then I really want to make it a little interactive. So if you send in your questions, I'd love to try and understand where you're coming from and respond. So straight into it, we are going to talk about why today education entrepreneurs are the need of the hour, right? We are going through really unbelievable times which could not have been imagined in December. This is the first time that, certainly for 100 years, that we have reached a point where children being together with other children in public spaces, in their schools, in their classrooms, is dangerous for the children themselves and for society at large. Who would have thought we would reach this point, right? So, therefore, because we cannot afford to let children's learning slip, right? We all have to put on our thinking hats and think very, very differently. Not like how we used to think in December, but how we need to be in 2022 and beyond. So, this is a great time for education entrepreneurs such as yourselves who have been in this incubator, some of you first year, some of you third year. And this is a great opportunity for you to really make your values a springboard and innovate, experiment, and learn. Because you see, and my experience very briefly in education has been for 20 years. I started out the Pratham. I'm sure everybody has heard of Pratham. It's one of the largest education NGOs in the world. And I was invited to join the Karnataka wing of Pratham, which we called Akshara Foundation in late 1999. And so I was there for about 8 years and then handed it over to a great team of leaders. And then in 2004, I co founded Pratham Books, and we had the goal of putting a book in every child's hand. I was there for 10 years. And as I was leaving Pratham Books, after, because I think leadership must be rotated after a few years, we started, Nandan, myself, and Shankar started Ek Step Foundation with the goal that 200 million children must have better opportunities to learn. And we are reaching the time limit we had set for ourselves. And I think we are going to be able to meet our goals. Also, partly because COVID and the pandemic have thrown up new opportunities to create digital learning abilities, okay? Not just for the children, but for everybody around them. Because I wanted to tell you that while there is a raging controversy on digital education and nothing can ever change, and you know that better than I do, the close physical, social, cultural contacts that a child can experience in her classroom with her peers, with a caring teacher, nothing can replace that. But in these times, we have no choice but to think differently, right? So that's where your work comes in. What can you do to keep that last child, whom I call the first child? Sometimes we say last child, but it's really the first child at the first mile, right? Whom we have to think of. In these times, millions of children don't have access. Millions of children are left behind. Millions of children are slipping in their learning. So, what can we do to hold them? One opportunity, as far as I can see, and at Xstep, of course, working with the governments and central government and the state government, we have created various tech-enabled platforms so that teachers can learn to develop better digital pedagogy, that they can learn better how to teach. So all that is going very well. But one more thing I wanted to tell you, this virus time has opened up a new possibility, that because children can't go to classrooms, because they can't meet their usual teachers, now everybody around the child can be a teacher too. And how do we enable the whole community to teach a child? right? So there are some opportunities for education entrepreneurs right now. How can we use online resources, not necessarily to stuff a child in front of a screen, but to use online resources for parents, grandparents, community helpers, siblings, whoever is right around the child in these times, to also keep the learning journey continuous. I've heard of some of your work and some of the breakthroughs some of you are making. You are learning how to make impact at little more scale. You're learning how to learn. You're learning how to fail in this incubator. And all those are going to be very valuable things as you step out into this very strange new world and undertake risk, define change, and uh, take your values and your passion and your commitment and stretch it just a little further. Those were briefly the points I wanted to say. And to end, before I start taking questions from all of you, is there is so much hope even in times of despair. And to me, Samaj based organizations, you are Samaj based organizations, together we are all Samaj. We have to keep on strengthening Samaj to develop the capacity to solve all sorts of crises and problems that are coming at us in so many ways right now. We have to become more resilient. We have to never lose hope, because things always will go wrong. But it is the effort of individuals and groups, uh, especially at times like this, that take on leadership, that innovate, that sustain their commitment for positive change, that will light all the lamps and make this world brighter. Just one lamp like that I read about recently is a 73-year-old gentleman called Chinnathumbi in the Idukki district of Kerala. And for years and years and years and years, in the middle of a forest, in a remote location where the Muthavan tribals live, deep inside the forest, he has a little tea stall, which is also a library. It has hardly 200 books, but it has classics like books from Muhammad Bashir, or he has Silapatikaram, and all kinds of books which the tribals, even though they have such hard lives, they come and borrow. You have to pay 25 rupees as a membership fee and 2 rupees a month to borrow those books. They're not free. Sometimes you get a cup of tea as well when you borrow a book. But he has kept serious logs of who takes what books. And over time, he has seen books being read again and again and again by people whom we, because we are ignorant sometimes, don't associate with reading classics. Imagine that man's commitment to reading, to literature, to learning, to education. That's the flame, that's the spirit that I hope all of you will keep in your hearts, especially in these times. As you exit from this incubator, as you start going out on your own, you now have a very strong network thanks to Edumentum. And I really hope that we can all keep sharing and learning from each other. These are special times, but these are also very exciting opportunities for all of you education entrepreneurs. I know you have passion. I know you have commitment. I know most of you are very young, which is very important, because young people have idealism, they have energy, they have enthusiasm, and they see the world differently. They don't mind making mistakes. So keep at it, and I wish you very well. And I'll be really happy to take questions for the remaining time that we have.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And we do have a lot of questions for you, definitely. So taking the first question, it's I always wonder what that we talk about online classroom and teachers, but what about those children who are not able to access the internet and are out of the school, away from human touch? I really want to know your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so I've been writing and thinking a lot about this, especially because at Xstep we do help governments with digital platforms. So now let me be very clear. The future is digital, whether we like it or not. I will again repeat that that does not mean that children don't need physical classroom. It's extremely important, and I don't need to repeat that. However, in times like these, imagine if we didn't even have digital. The one thing we must do is I think this is a real opportunity for government to understand that having a digital tool in one's home and in one's hand, right? Whether it is a phone or a computer of some kind, a common, it could be a shared resource. It doesn't have to be one person having one device, but that everybody now in their lives, just like we need roti, kapda, makan, shiksha, and swasthya, we also need access to digital public goods. And for the government to now universalize access so that in fact there are no children left who don't have access to digital devices is one way I think Samaj should push the Sarkar and the bazaar. But remember, digital resources and online education doesn't mean that you keep, as I said, children in front of a screen. It could also mean that you use digital to enable the caring adults around the child to have access to those digital resources to learn better how to continue the child's education. So we need online. The future is digital. We cannot stay out of digital. The digital divide is already so huge that if we don't try to level up, which means instead of saying because some children don't have access, bring everybody down to a level where nobody has access. No, we have to think now, because this is not the last pandemic. This is not the last social crisis. Climate change is going to bring things that we can't even imagine right now. Some are playing out in Assam, some are playing out in Bihar. So we are going to need remote and distance learning journeys. How do we infuse the same value of caring, of sharing, right, of trust building in this new digital world? That's where I would like us all to focus, because we can't avoid that. As soon as we can go back to physical, we must and we should. But here is a chance to make even physical better through digital.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And definitely, I think this is the chance for all of us to innovate and see where digital world can take us. Ma'am, we have, okay, the next question is, ma'am, what are the various ways by which the ecosystem can support the social impact organizations?
Right. So when you say ecosystem, in this case, to support social sector, obviously there's a whole philanthropic community that needs to come forward. And that's why I think Edumentum and what you are doing, Mantra for Change, all of you are so important in the ecosystem to build the confidence of young entrepreneurs, whether they are for-profit or non-profit, to be able to access financial resources, human resources, and of course, training and capacity building. So we do need the philanthropic community to step up more, because I always feel like you never know where a good idea can come from. It's not only old people or experts or professionals who get good ideas, right? So it often comes from just anywhere. And to be able to discover who is that person in that anywhere and be able to draw them in to share their experiences and take those innovation risks, you do need the ecosystem to build out. I think a lot of intermediary organizations are springing up that are backed by philanthropic capital, just like as in this example, and we certainly need more of that. The government also understands that, in fact, especially in this pandemic, the social sector, they were the first responders. I mean, apart from the health community, they were right there. They were in touch with the people. They were able to respond immediately. So I do hope that this ecosystem supporting social entrepreneurs will build up even faster and make wider. It's happening. It's not happening as fast as we need, but I think these times will also trigger that. Let's hope for that.
Yes, definitely, ma'am. And that is the hope that is keeping all of us motivated also right now.
Yes.
Okay, so ma'am, the next question is, how can NGO system collaborate and work at scale?
Yeah, so that's a very difficult process. Right? We all say we should collaborate. We all say we should do things at scale. But as I'm sure Sanjay and others have been telling you, what's more important is not for us to scale, not for necessarily for our institutions to scale. We should scale organically as much as we can. But it is very important for the mission to scale. for the idea, the purpose, the societal mission behind what we do, that has to scale. And if that has to scale, and that's the real reason we are here, then the way we work, the way we think about scale has to be different. We have to think about openness, about shareable resources. Like suppose one entrepreneur develops some kind of toolkit for learning. How can that entrepreneur think that it's not that I keep this toolkit and I extract all the value from it, but how can I make it easier for other people to access this toolkit and in fact improve the toolkit so that those improvements can come back to me. So when I'm working with the children in my constituency, I'm able to have an improved toolkit. That is really the essence of collaboration, because we as institutions don't have all the answers. Even if you're a one-person institution or like us, a 200-person institution, we don't have all the answers. And if we want the mission to scale, we have to think about creative collaboration and collaborative creation. And I think that's the purpose of this kind of effort at Edumentum, that all of us can connect with each other, small and big, and scale as much as we need to scale without letting the idea of scale debilitate us, right? And make us brittle. So you have to scale in a flexible way. You have to scale in a way where even if your leadership within your organization crumbles or your institution crumbles, the work must continue. And I'll give you a very quick example of Pratham Books. When we decided to start Pratham Books, we wanted to make sure children didn't have books to read. Honestly, we did all the research. There were hardly 600 books available in India in all languages for children to actually buy and read. We said this doesn't work in a country where 300 million children need good books in their languages, accessible to them. And that's how we decided to create a sort of a platform approach at Pratham Books. We said, why should only publishers monopolize book creation? So we said, in a country of storytellers, where stories are told every night in every home, why can't everybody be part of this journey, putting a book in every child's hand? So we got on board people who are willing to give their time and talent, writers, illustrators, translators, editors. We opened up the idea of writing, publishing, and reading. And that's how the mission scaled, even though the organization scaled, but it didn't have to scale up to the level of the mission. So openness, allowing ideas, content, and tools to be shared and shared widely, that's how I think we can create ecosystem impact and scale.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And I think this is the belief that at Edumentum also we value. And this is something that we are also going to explore in the coming sessions today. So thanks a lot. Ma'am, the next question is, you are a believer of the power of Samaj actors, but today there is always a power difference between Sarkar and Samaj.
Yes.
How do you suggest one moves towards finding a balance so that society improves? Some actionable tips for Samaj actors, please.
Yeah. So first of all, let me say I talk a lot about Samaj, Bazaar, and Sarkar, and it is a continuum, right? What is Bazaar and Sarkar? Bazaar in the whenever it was started and created and then became more formal as the corporation 300, 200 years ago. What is Bazaar? It is a way for people to find goods and services for each other. So the Bazaar was created so that the Samaj can benefit. What is Sarkar? Sarkar is, again, because we all need rule of law, we need some systemic improvements for individuals that individuals can't do. What is Sarkar? Sarkar is set up to serve Samaj. Sometimes we get confused about that. So I always say Samaj is the first sector, and Sarkar, that is the state, and Bazaar, that is the market, were created to deliver goods, services, and benefits so that Samaj can keep on growing stronger. So first of all, Samaj organizations need to understand that, to understand that we as Samaj institutions have the agency to create real change. Sarkar and Bazaar will do what they have to do, but we have to create processes by which Sarkar is also accountable to the larger public interest. So once we understand that, we develop inner agency for that, I believe. And yes, Sarkar has become much more powerful. Bazaar has become much more powerful. But just look at this pandemic. Tell me who was there right in the beginning to help people. It was actors of the Samaj. And finally, what is state and markets? They're also people, no? They are not, Samaj also has people, all of us have the same kind of motivations. So for Samaj actors, it is very important to understand that the state is not some monopolistic, powerful sort of one single monolith, okay? Sarkar is also, I mean, so did I say Samaj? I meant Sarkar. Sarkar is also people. It's not, so there are always going to be people in the Sarkar, in the state, in the government who align with your vision and ideals. Find those champions and work with them. It won't be easy, but when we talk of scale, we know we need the state. We know the state has the power and the resources. So constantly trying to align with the state, to even sometimes you have to take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, but you still need to find, believe me, in my 30 years in the sector, we have always found parts of the state more than willing to support us, to support our ideas, to support our work, to give us space inside the Sarkar system to work. So never lose hope on that, and never lose faith in the fact that Samaj is the first sector. We innovate, we bear risk, we are closest to the problem, and Sarkar will listen.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And thank you so much for underlining the aspect that Samaj is at the center and everything else revolves around it. I think that gives a lot of hope to everyone. The next question we have is, because of reverse migration, there is opportunity to engage youth and community engaging children, but post-lockdown, how to ensure that these youth or community women continue to engage children?
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough question. We don't even know, even if there's no lockdown, we will still, I think for the next 1 year, we will still have to have new social protocols, and they will have to become a part of our lives. So when migrants, suppose migrants return back to the cities, I hope they will carry with them some experience of having integrated more with their own communities, to bring some of the skills they learned from the cities, bring them to the villages and understand their villages problems in a new light, because now suddenly all of us are in the same boat together. So that gives a very different perspective for the migrant who went home and who is still in great economic hardship from what I've been reading in the data we are looking at. So, but I hope that in that perspective which has changed will come back even if they return to the urban areas. So in that sense, we will have a whole new generation of education champions to sort of see the potential to make learning groups from. So all of you entrepreneurs can start thinking and designing for that. And, you know, we are also going to be doing some thinking around that. But back in the villages, suppose the migrants return to the cities, back in the villages, if they get emptied out after a year or so, what will be left behind? What have we created in this crisis to keep behind for people who are living there permanently to build themselves out of these hardships from? I think you have to focus on that. Again, learning tools, teaching tools, groups, stickiness of groups will keep the enthusiasm going, learning from each other, and keep a tight-knit group has to be formed, even if it is as small as 3 people and as large as whatever it can be. I think focusing on creating the social glue to keep the education of the child at the center of a community's response is going to be is going to make us successful. So thinking of how to create that stickiness, that glue, so that at least a few champions are continuously thinking, what did my child lose in these few months and how can I help her to continue her learning journey? It's possible. Of course, it's possible. After the Latur earthquake, so many interesting social experiments started about education, about creating resilient earthquake-proof housing, about women's groups solidifying for so many actions to be taken. It's possible. Crises do create opportunities.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And I think you highlighted a very important, and relevant topic, which is community. How community can take the ownership of education. And again, this is one of the topics that we are going to discuss in the sessions today. So, ma'am, in the interest of time, we'll take one last question. And the question is, what is the role of mature organizations in supporting young entrepreneurs in the social sector, especially given, just give me a minute, yeah, especially given the current situation where there are so many resource constraints?
Yeah. No, I think that's a very good question. I think some of the mature organizations that I am a part of are very much thinking about this, that how do we, so most philanthropic organizations and mature organizations are keeping parts of their budget this year precisely for what you're asking, to help smaller organizations who are struggling for resources. So without conditions, they are saying, okay, we don't need your usual outcome reports, just use this money as you see fit to continue on the mission. So that is happening. A lot more needs to happen, but it is happening. And I think you will see that, because mature organizations also are having resource constraints, not all of them, but many of them. So they are in fact seeing better the power of collaborating with anybody anywhere, because the idea of resource is changing from just financial to human. And once that shift happens, that resources are human resources, then they can be anywhere, right? If you switch from the idea of just finance to the idea of community and humans, resources and human skills, then the way you think of collaboration is also expanding and changing. And I do want to say before we close for the education entrepreneurs, right now, because of, education demand has been established in India. Health demand is just growing, and because of the pandemic will become solid. And as we all know, health is a huge part of education in this country of ours, because we don't know, there are reports, there is research, but the what are called social determinants of education, right? It depends on the health of the child, it depends on the health of the household. So health is a very key social determinant for education outcomes. We all know that. So right now, because of the pandemic, a whole new language, people have begun to understand things that they have not thought much about, all of us, right? So for example, why diagnostics is so important, right? The idea that we better check every day if we have fever. A simple thing, a thermometer, right? It lets you know, is my temperature all right? Or those simple pulse oximeters lets you know, is my oxygen level all right? It's as if people have begun to understand the importance of diagnostic tools. This might be an opportunity, I believe, for education entrepreneurs to use that language of the health sector, which has now become ingrained in people, and bring it to the education sector. So for example, how do we create simple diagnostic tools for people to measure a child's learning in a very simple way, like the ASAR tool, which Pratham has, which I think many of you will be familiar with. How can we design simple tools for the people around the child and for the child to do rapid assessments of learning loss and learning gain? So that's an opportunity, I think, that's coming, because people have understood measurements, simple measurements to stay healthy. Similarly, simple measurements to keep your learning healthy could be a new opportunity for all of you in these very difficult times. Unfortunately, I have to go now. I thank you all for the opportunity, for the good questions. I hope the rest of your conference goes very well. And I wish all of you in the incubator success and satisfaction from your work, because make no mistake, you are doing a human service, a very important key service for society. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. Please stay safe, and please stay creative, and please stay committed, and please stay curious all the time. Namaste. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rohini, for such an enlightening session. We could have not started our day on a better note. And thank you so much for highlighting the significance of supporting entrepreneurs in the social sector.
All the very best.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
I'll take my leave.